Today we'll be walking you through a documentary about traumatic brain injuries and how it affects the youth's developing brain. According to the U.S. National Library of Medicine, concussions represented 8.9% of all high school athletic injuries and 5.8% of all collegiate athletic injuries. The Mayo Clinic website defines a cerebral concussion as a temporary loss of brain function, typically resulting from a relatively mild injury to the brain. Most concussions are caused by getting hit in the head or being violently shaken. Loss of consciousness can occur, but most of the time the concussion victim stays conscious. Because of this, some people have concussions and don't even realize it. Concussions are common in all contact sports and need to be taken seriously because every concussion injures your brain to some extent.
To find out more information on concussions, we got an interview with Dr. Tong Yang from Yale University. What is your knowledge behind concussions and stuff like that?
Well, concussion, that's actually one aspect that I deal with because I'm the only pediatric neurosurgeon in the whole state. Mm-hmm. So Sanford, we're level 2 trauma for adult and kids. So all the neighboring hospitals, including northern Minnesota, they come over to us. And a lot of kids, play sports here. Football is a big thing, so a lot of them do have concussions, and we work with that. So for concussion, it's a pretty common sports injury, motor vehicle accident, especially the football league, the chronic damage or encephalopathy. So essentially, if you have repeated injury without sufficient recovery in between, you do have long-term detrimental effect on the brain as well.
Oh, and you actually said that women actually experience more concussions.
Or persistent concussion.
Oh.
People can have concussion, but usually, mostly you should get better within a couple weeks.
As you can see, brain injuries are very complex with a lot of things going on at the cellular level. So, let's dive in and take a look to see what's really going on.
During a concussion, the head is stopped or accelerated suddenly and the brain shifts within the skull, causing different parts of the brain to stretch and compress. The stretching and compressing tears the cell membranes of brain cells, allowing different materials to enter and leave freely. In each membrane of brain cells, there are several sodium-potassium pumps that pump sodium out of the cell and potassium into the cell. The gradient the pump produces is vital for the nervous system to function properly. When the brain cell membrane is torn, the ions are able to flow freely, which ruins the resting potential of the cell membrane.
In an effort to restore the gradient that was destroyed, the sodium-potassium pump works overtime. With sodium-potassium pump working harder, it needs increasing amounts of ATP energy, causing more glucose to be used. At the same time that the potassium is leaking out of the cell, calcium is also being taken in by the cell. The calcium being absorbed enters the mitochondria and clogs up the electron transport chain. This clog slows down the flow of protons that is needed in the electron transport chain, which creates ATP.
Constant increase in calcium may reduce mitochondrial function and worsen the energy crisis, which in turn can directly activate pathways within the brain leading to cell death. After a brain cell dies, there's very little the brain can do to replace it. Neurons cannot be regrown, but the brain can reprogram different healthy neurons from other parts of the brain to do the job that the dead neurons once did. This reassignment mechanism works for a few dead neurons, but doesn't offer much help if many neurons die. The cells that die end up producing literal holes within the brain, and the brain gradually declines in efficiency and shrinks.
So as you can see, concussions are a very complex injury. Not much is really known about the regenerative properties of neurons. More research needs to be done in the field of neuroregeneration in order to help minimize the long-term effects of having a concussion. Thank you guys for watching our documentary. I hope you enjoyed it.
We hope you learned a lot from this.
And if you want, check out our link down below and donate to the Concussion Foundation.